What the fuck is up, everybody? It's officially the holiday season. Bust out your cheer, bust out your eggnog, and tune into the Vanguard. Pretty crazy how it all snuck up on us. I cannot fucking believe that Thanksgiving is 2 days away. The real, mark of the Yuletide season. How you doing today, Gavin?
Doing great, doing great. And yeah, to your point, it seems like it was just Halloween. So yeah, it's crazy that the holiday season is upon us. The only thing that makes winter tolerable, in my opinion, is the holiday festivities. So I am a fan of the Thanksgiving, Christmas season, all that good stuff. Adds a little bit of cheer to the air. But yeah, glad to be back with the Vanguard community. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. Make sure to hit that like button if you are just tuning in. We have an awesome show for you guys today. Got some drama to discuss in the first half of the segment, plus a bit of a reaction to a recent Bad Faith podcast episode. And then in the second half of our show today, we're going to be welcoming back to the Vanguard some of the Red Berets fighting for universal health care. And we're really excited to chat with them to talk about the ongoing movement and fight for healthcare for all. So stay tuned for that, guys. That's going to be in the second half of today's show in about an hour from now. But yeah, we have some awesome stuff to get into today. Really excited to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess we can kickstart the show, as always, with a big shout out to our patron community. If we can throw that up on the board, shout out to every comrade, Vanguardian, Super Vanguardian. Of course, you're all comrades to us. Just hope you guys hit that like button, hit the subscription button, and the notification bell, because we are erratic, ungovernable folk here, and we never go live at the same time twice.
Yeah, huge shout out to the patron community. You guys know we like to start and end every single one of our live streams with a huge shout out to the patrons. Thank you guys so much for your support. We wouldn't be able to do the show without you. And if you're interested in supporting our show and joining our patron community, you can hit up that link. It's going to be in the description as always, patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. And like I said, that's going to be found in the description of all of our video content, all of our live streams. So hit that up if you enjoy the content we create and the perspective we espouse, because it is tough out here for an independent left-wing channel like ourselves. And we really wouldn't be able to do the show without the support from our patron community. So thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. Patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. Hit it up, hit it up, hit it up.
Absolutely. So shout out to you, Lloyd Thurston Dinwiddie, aka Giant. Shout out to you for that first super chat, or super sticker rather, of the live stream. Really appreciate that, man.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lloyd. Really appreciate that first super chat of the live stream. Super appreciated. Thank you so much, Lloyd. Really appreciate that. Always love seeing you guys in the chat.
Absolutely. And I guess one thing that I wanted to, before we get into the controversy of today, did want to start this off by talking a little bit about, obviously there was a massive shooting the other day in Colorado Springs, at a nightclub. And it's, it was not good, the reactions that people had to that. It was pretty fucking abysmal, actually. In fact, it was really a lot more hateful and disgusting than I had anticipated. You know that the rhetoric around the LGBTQ community is rough, right? The right wing has just been on a full-on assault, just an unmitigated fucking, no holds bar, just almost like you want to say like a war on LGBTQ people, really. Like, they are not holding back in their rhetoric in the way that I felt like perhaps they used to. They feel far more confident to tongue-in-cheekly celebrate the violence that was just, took numerous lives in Colorado, the youngest of which was only a 22-year-old. That's pretty devastating. Obviously, it's devastating whenever anybody's lives taken. But in this case, a vulnerable community being targeted, being hunted, essentially. And people are out here kind of celebrating it, right? You've got the Tim Pool fucks being like, oh, what did you expect? Oh, these people are groomers, these people are pedophiles, like, the people have had enough. Like, just outward hate speech, like, we want these people killed. So I wanted to go ahead and throw up the one missed story, one element of the story. Let's throw, or do you have one that you want to throw up really quick, Gavin? I've got a tweet I can share of the old Matt Walsh. Yeah. So the club at the drag show every Saturday. It's impossible to escape the horrifying conclusion that the escalating rhetoric against drag queens promoted by people like Chaya Raichik from Libs of TikTok, Matt Walsh, and others. Tim Pool is another one that comes to my mind. And then it comes over here and he says, Matt Walsh, it's impossible to escape the conclusion that you're a demented, gutless freak whose first reaction after a mass shooting is to score points against people who don't think children should be invited to drag shows. So pretty clearly drawing a direct comparison to their rhetoric that they've had. And then it gets even worse from here. If we go, I think the Surfs actually had a pretty good compilation of Tim Pool's madness. So let's see here. Here we go. This is what I was looking for. The grooming of children is not stopping. People are calling for more violence. I do not think legislators will stop the grooming. People will not stop calling for violence. So you tell me what happens next. I mean, yeah, this is literally a call for more attacks on the LGBTQ community. And if you cannot see that, then you are being massively, massively dishonest right here. Okay. This is the end goal of everything. It seems that around 10 p.m. Club Q posted they were having an all ages show. About 2 hours later, people keep calling for wood chippers, and this is what happens. Like, are you fucking kidding me? This is the kind of rhetoric that leads to massive violence, and the fact that it's not being understood that way immediately by more individuals is extremely disheartening. So I wanted to kick off the show today by talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, totally. It's truly shocking how normalized this bigotry against the LGBT community has become on the right wing in the last year or so. Obviously, there's always been homophobia and transphobia in a serious way existing on the right wing in this country. But the way that these attacks and this rhetoric has escalated over the last year or so is frankly sickening, truly disgusting. And that's not to say that any one person like, Tim Pool or Libs of TikTok is like directly responsible for what happened in Colorado Springs. It's not like they could be held responsible in a court of law for inciting that attack or something, but absolutely undeniably the culture they have fostered and the rhetoric they have normalized over the last year or so 100% not only led to the massacre in Colorado Springs, but has led to rising hate crimes in general perpetrated upon the LGBT community. There's simply no denying the link is there. So even if people want to come out here and say, oh, you can't hold this one person responsible for this crazy person committing an act of violence. Okay, fair. That's fair. I'm not saying that like Tim Pool should be dragged away in handcuffs for, stating his dog shit, bigoted opinion. No one's suggesting that. We're in favor of free speech here. But like I said, 100% undeniably, the disgusting culture of bigotry, the toxic rhetoric, the blatant and normalized transphobia and homophobia has absolutely led to the increase in hate crimes perpetrated on this community, which is, I will remind you guys, one of the most marginalized communities in the country. They're not, a community that is in power. This is a small percentage of the population that are under attack, and these sorts of calls to violence are only escalating from disgusting pieces of shit like Tim Pool, who equates drag shows to grooming kids with no evidence. No one is in favor of grooming kids. No one on the left is in favor of that. No one in the LGBT community is in favor of that. Drag queens are not in favor of that. It's absolutely disgusting to equate the experience of being transgender or of being in the drag community to grooming or to committing any sorts of crimes against children. There's no link there. The majority of crimes committed against children are at the behalf of straight men, not transgender or homosexual men. And the majority of them, if you want to talk about institutionally, come from the church. And you don't see all these right wingers, bombing churches. You don't see them shooting up churches. It's really just an excuse to commit hate crimes against a marginalized community of oppressed people, that being the LGBT community.
Yeah, when are we going to start hearing about all of the Catholics, bro? That's what I want to know. When am I going to start hearing about all the clergymen, the bishops, the guy that what was that fucker you told me about it? They like transferred him to like a school with deaf children, so they like couldn't fucking report his abuses. He was like he was in that one documentary. There are all kinds of actual, I mean, this, we all know this. People saw the movie Spotlight. I mean, everybody knows that the Catholic Church is the #1 pedophile ring in all of the world. You never hear that brought up by the groomer folks. Matt Walsh over here Bible thumping away, not giving a fuck about that. Pretty insane. And the last thing, and I hate, I don't want to give this guy any more clout, but I think he's the perfect fucking example of why so many people in the commentary sphere are lurching towards this kind of really disgusting, dangerous rhetoric. If you just look at the evolution of Jackson Hinkle, we have, this guy's been doing the show about as long as us, and he has completely done a massive reversal on everything that the dude stands for. So this is from less than a year ago, earlier this year. What are we talking about? 7 months ago, 8 months ago? No, a little more than that, 9 months. Tulsi Gabbard is a repulsive transphobe. I'll take neither option. Thanks. Jackson says, I am opposed to her anti-trans bill as well. Just curious what people have to say. Well, let's look at how deeper down this rabbit hole Jackson's gotten. Institutions that promote / carry out quote unquote trans genital mutilations on the youth of America should be labeled domestic terrorist organization. It is just a 180 reverse over months and months and months. Why? Because it is profitable to spread that kind of hate speech. It is profitable. It will boost your clout. It will get you more clips because people are fucking terrible and YouTube is a right-wing cesspool, unfortunately. And if you have absolutely no shame, no standards, absolutely no moral core or compass, this is the kind of thing you can allow yourself to do.
Yeah, fuck this disgusting piece of shit. Makes my blood boil. And what really makes my blood boil is all the people in the so-called left. They continue to enable this fucking disgusting bigotry. Again, here's Jackson Hinkle saying mental illness should be cured by improving your mental and physical health, not by genital mutilation and hormone blockers. Basically equating the experience of being transgender to being mentally ill. Which again is disgusting and exactly the kind of dehumanizing rhetoric, which does lead to an increased amount of hate crimes and violence against what is, I will repeat, an incredibly marginalized and powerless community, which comprises a small percentage of the population. Again, this is absolutely fucking disgusting. Fuck anyone that enables this. Fuck anyone that continues to have this guy on without calling him out and confronting him on this bullshit. You're absolutely part of the problem.
100%. So the other thing I did want to end on a base note, the gunman that went into that Colorado club in Colorado Springs, he got the fuck beat out of him so bad by the gay community. This was based. Let me just read a little excerpt right here. I grabbed the gun out of his hand and just started hitting him in the head over and over, Mr. Fierro said. As the fight continued, he said he yelled for other club patrons to help him. A man grabbed the rifle and moved it away to safety. A drag dancer stomped on the gunman with her high heels. The whole time, Mr. Fierro said he kept pummeling the shooter's head while the two men screamed obscenities at each other. When the police arrived a few minutes later, the gunman was no longer struggling. They literally thought that these two patrons of the club, just a regular gay man, happened to be there. I think he was an Army vet, so he'd had some training. And then just, I believe it was a trans woman, dancing, having a good time, stomping on this fucker with her heels. Just based as hell, man. That's the only response that we should be talking about right now, and the fact that the police can't do their jobs, but the fucking gay community can protect themselves. And obviously this was a tragedy that could have massively been prevented. Another shooting with an AR-15, if I'm not mistaken. So we know what needs to be done, but at least, the gay community stepping up to defend themselves when the police wouldn't.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Nikki O'Brien, for the 199. Really appreciate that. 100%. Zach and Gavin, hugs and solidarity, y'all. Right back at you, Nikki. Thank you so much for tuning in. Glad you're enjoying the show. And thank you so much for the super chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Nikki, hugs back at you. This is a really tough time, and especially for folks in the LGBTQ community. So, massive love and nothing but solidarity from the Vanguard.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you, Adi the Bug Catcher. Really appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for the $5. I was going to say, glad to finally catch you both live after almost a month, but this whole shooting story and the right's reaction to it is pissing me off. Yeah, we totally share your frustration, Adi. Thanks for tuning in, man. And yeah, the right's reaction is also pissing me off, as well as the reaction of certain people on the so-called left who continue to enable and platform these transphobes and people that are just accelerating this anti-trans and anti-gay rhetoric in an almost sociopathic fashion, just in a pursuit of clout from the right wing, clicks from the right wing, money from the right wing, with no regard for the human lives and suffering that's being impacted by exactly this sort of rhetoric. Which, again, even if it didn't, even if we find out that the shooter was completely unmotivated by the right wing discourse surrounding trans people, which is unlikely but possible, right? We still don't technically know the motive yet. Even if we find out this was just some crazy motherfucker that happened to wander into a gay club and no idea where he was and just started firing rounds, unaware of the fact that, you know, trans people and gay people were going to be his victims. Even if that were the case, that doesn't excuse the rising hate crimes, the percentage, the statistical rise in hate crimes we see against the LGBT community, which can directly be tied to this rhetoric. So yeah, it's absolutely sickening. Thank you so much, Adi. Really, really glad you tuned in.
Yeah, great to see you back in here, Adi. Always a good time when we see you in the chat. And yeah, this is all sickeningly disgusting and unfortunate that we can't be more unified as a left and speaking out against this, because obviously we can't be unified against anything on the left. The fucking apparently even these massive blatant fucking attacks on a marginalized community that we've all said millions of times we're gonna stick up for. So yeah, very frustrating stuff, Adi. Shout out to you, Hokie Salam. Again, another OG Vanguard listener. That always great to see you in the chat. Just trying to keep up with the Audi. Also, thoughts on fried turkey. Okay. I do have some thoughts on fried turkey. That shit is dangerous as hell. Let's put that out here first. That shit is dangerous as hell. Most people don't know how to fry things, period, right? And they don't understand that if you put something that's wet in a fryer, it is going to be fucked, right? You also have to remind people that if you that like displacement is real when you're cooking, and if you fill up a pot with boiling oil and then you stick a fucking 15-pound bird in it, that all that boiling liquid is going to go out of the top and catch into the flame that's onto the bottom, and then you're gonna have a grease fire on your hands, and that's how people burn down their fucking houses. So those are two things that you have to say as a precursor whenever you talk about fried turkey. Okay, if you're gonna fry a turkey, just dissect the bitch before you fry it. It makes it way easier. It's still fried turkey. Nobody fries the whole chicken in this country anymore. We chop it up first and then we fry it, because that's the smart thing to do. All that aside, I'm a Midwesterner. I prefer a smoked turkey. If I'm going to go all out with my turkey over the year, I'm going to brine it. I'm going to wood chip smoke it in the backyard. And that's how I'll serve my turkey. But fried turkey is good.
Yeah, I can't comment on that. I don't eat turkey. I'm a vegetarian, so I'll fry some tofurkey this year. But I have heard a lot of horror stories about people trying to fry turkeys and getting like boiling oil on their face or being permanently disfigured or burning down their house and stuff like that. So if you plan on frying a turkey this year, definitely be careful with that shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to just quickly respond to Kimberly Davis right here, because I think obviously, you know, you've been a long time listener. And I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to how things like hormone blockers work. Hormone blockers have actually been used for a long time in specific cases, not at all involving the trans community or trans children. They've actually been used on women who's biologically they just begin their period a little too early for what is considered like healthy, right? So say you're like an 8 or 9-year-old girl that's going through puberty, they can actually put you on some hormone blockers that will, you know, help you over the long run. And we have not seen you know, these long-term permanent effects that people are talking about. And typically you know, when you're talking about minors, the number of minors who actually begin transitioning before their 18th birthday is very low, and it's going to be after massive amounts of counseling. It's going to be after massively long conversations with your doctor. I think a lot of people might misunderstand the process for transitioning in this country. Even if you are a fully grown adult with, you know, as much money that you want to spend, I mean, there is a lot that goes into transitioning. You are made extremely aware of the changes that are going to happen to your body. It's not like you walk into the doctor's office and you tell them that you are a trans person, and then they're like, great, here's this pill, prep yourself for surgery, come back on Tuesday, don't eat anything water for the first 13 hours before you go. No, that's not how it works. So I just think that, if a person and a doctor and a parent is making decisions about their child for the betterment of their mental health, like, I mean, who am I to be out here, saying like, oh, let's legislate that, right? In the same way that who am I to be out here saying like, oh, well, it's between a person, her doctor, and her local government whether or not they can get an abortion or something like that. I don't believe that there's a place for that in the government. So I wanted to just give a little bit more of a fully fleshed out view of that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I would definitely recommend talking to some trans people that had that experience, going through those those procedures or medical treatments as a minor. I think they'll explain that, as Zach said, it's not something that's being pushed on people. I think in the rare cases in which kids are put on hormone blockers or, start their transition at an early age, it's after a lot of counseling with the medical professionals. It's after long conversations are had in which the doctor decides, along with the family members, in collaboration with the family and the child, that this is the best path medically, again, to decrease the chances of suicidal ideations and body dysmorphia down the road. This is not a decision that's ever made lightly. But that being said, I don't think you're, we're not saying that you're transphobic, Kimberly. I think it's understandable to, have questions about it and to not, and to, have some concerns naturally, given the fact that young kids are involved. But also keep in mind that lots of medical procedures are minors experience a lot of medical procedures. Kids get prescribed Adderall all the time, stuff like that. Zach got prescribed Adderall as a young child, and while that might sound scary to an outsider, what, they're pushing methamphetamine salts on minors? That's crazy. Yeah, it sounds crazy if you put it like that. But I think that a lot of medical professionals, again, in collaboration with their patients, with the family members, decide that that is the correct path forward. And it's not our place to tell them not to do that. I think that should be between the parents and their doctors. So yeah, that's what I would say, Kimberly. But we appreciate you sharing your perspective and tuning in as always. Also, I wanted to shout out good friend of the show who I just saw in the chat, RJ. Yeah, where'd you go, RJ? Yeah, miss you guys, back after 4 months. Wanted to shoot the shit with you guys like the good old days. I may make my return to podcasting this summer. Fuck yeah, bro. Fuck yeah. You're obviously always welcome on the Vanguard. RJ, hit us up whenever. We'd love to have a chat. And that's dope that you're considering making a return to podcasting. I definitely miss your voice in the space. You're a good friend of the show. And also another person saying that they can't send a super chat. I don't know what is going on with that. Definitely concerning. But again, thank you so much, RJ. It's a thought that counts.
Oh, he says real men dump the whole turkey in the hot grease like a Catholic priest dumping a newborn baby in the christening. LOL. RJ, that is an image, of course. Yeah. I mean, that's I mean, hey, I could just imagine a lot of folks in Kansas City getting the bright idea to fry their turkey this year and then having no roof for the holidays. So that's why I just wanted to shout it out, because that is that would cause a massive explosion. They did an entire Mythbusters on frying. It was something to do with frying a turkey, and they caused quite a disaster. But anyway, shout out to you, RJ. You're always welcome on the show, and we're happy to have you to talk about whatever. Nothing against kid. The kids argument is something the right uses a lot. Every parent has their own way of parenting, in my opinion. For example, kids shouldn't be put through religious indoctrination. Yeah, for sure. And to Kimberly's point, are there individuals that have transitioned and then detransitioned? Yes, like there was the right loves to pluck these people out. Like there was the person that transitioned and tried to make themselves look like one of the members of BTS, and like clearly that person was going through like a real mental health crisis, and then to like put them up on Fox News and Tucker Carlson as if they're the face for every person that's ever transitioned is a little bit misleading in my view, but it is true that there is a minority of individuals who do transition and then wish to detransition. So yeah, I mean, but to give another medical example that has nothing to do with genitalia, when I was a kid, I had 2 kidneys, right? And then the doctor was like, hey, we think your son might die from Wilms tumor if you don't take that other kidney out, right? And my parents were like, well, fuck, we don't want our kid to die. We should take out that kidney. They take it out. No Wilms tumor in there. Sorry, guys, we fucked up.
They mutilated you. Child mutilation.
Exactly, but that's not as salient of an argument to make. So it's just like,
Yeah, thank you so much, Adi. Thank you so much, Adi. And again, I understand that there are valid concerns. Not everyone that's concerned about the issue is a transphobe. Maybe they just don't have. I'm not saying everyone's a transphobe that disagrees with my perspective or the perspective of the trans community, but do keep in mind that 97% of people that transition are happy with their decision and they don't go back. It's not like the detransitioning phenomenon is as widespread as the conservative anti-trans movement would have you believe. In fact, the vast majority of transgender people who do seek gender affirming care are much happier afterwards, and only about 3% of them decide to go back. So I think that's a decision that people should be allowed to make. And I think that, if families decide that that's what's best for their children, they should be able to make that decision in collaboration with a doctor. Again, no one's pushing this. It's not like you just go to the doctor and, hey, I have depression. Oh, maybe you should try this testosterone. Take 500 milligrams a day and you'll feel great. Like no one, that's not happening. And again, I'll remind you as well that a lot of the, concern for the children, what about the kids rhetoric is a result of exactly this. Since it's not acceptable anymore to be anti-gay, incels and chuds cloak their hatred with a fake concern over children. Now, I'm not saying that anyone specifically is doing that, but I do think it's fair to point out, as Dusty Smith says, if they actually cared about children being molested, they'd be burning down the fucking churches. I think that's pretty hard to deny because that's where the majority of child predation takes place. And it doesn't seem like the right wing is terribly concerned with, inflicting violence or, carrying out shootings on the fucking local Catholic church.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be 100% why the right wing is making such a big concerted effort to make this the number one issue for their voters, even though, the trans population makes up what, fucking 1% of the entire U.S. population. I mean, not exactly a blockbuster issue for the American people. Like, we could just let these people live their lives and then, great. But anyway, just wanted to kickstart the show with a little bit of conversation about that because it had been eating at me over the last couple of hours, as I imagine it had been eating at Gavin. But did you want to move on to Shoe0nHead? Oh, hey, shout out to you, Mariposa. All HRT that trans and NB people take was HRT for cis people. Cis men take T, cis women take estrogen, and cis children who have early puberty take blockers. People are only outraged when it's trans people. Yeah, I happen to share that view with you, Mariposa.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Exactly correct. So thank you so much, Mariposa, for the $9.99. Really appreciate that. And thank you so much for tuning in today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And yeah, let's move on to our first story for the day. I'll remind you guys that we're going to be having some healthcare activists on the show later from the Red Berets for Medicare for All. And we're super excited to be chatting with them. That'll be in about 30 minutes or so. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But we did want to talk a little bit more about the continuing debacle over on Twitter, with Elon Musk kind of instituting these anti-censorship policies willy-nilly with seemingly no real regard for an actual adherence to the First Amendment, which is what he claimed to care so much about in the first place, which has led to a lot of people on the right wing and the left calling him out over these obvious hypocrisies and seeming cognitive dissonance over the new policies and the reinstatements of certain people versus the continued bans for others. Also, thank you so much, Kimberly. Really appreciate the 1999. Always appreciate your perspective and appreciate you being honest about the way you feel about this subject matter too. Obviously, we welcome all opinions here at the Vanguard, and we want to engage in an honest way with everyone.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Don't be mean to Kim in the chat or we'll ban you. It takes a lot of courage to stand up and say, hey, I have some questions about this. I'm not sure that I'm on the same page as you guys, and we can do that respectfully and like knowing each other or in good faith. Just if Kim has questions about the way that the medical science of all this all checks out and shakes out, that doesn't mean that she's not a part of our community. So shout out to you, Kim. We really value you. Yeah, Gavin's going to pull up a tweet really quickly. But yeah, shout out to everybody that's been tuning in today. And I hope everybody has some at least somewhat festive holiday plans. We were talking a little bit about the beginning of this stream about how crazy it was that it all snuck up so fast. I remember I was at the bar this weekend and we were closed on Sunday, but we had to have the staff come in and everybody was like deep cleaning everything because I'm sure you guys can only imagine how fucking disgusting a bar gets. And our bar is really clean because we do staff cleaning days every quarter, but other bars gets really nasty because I can tell you how nasty it gets over 3 months when you only clean after anyway. So we were in there doing that and everybody was talking about Thanksgiving and it literally just like a mirror shattering moment for me, like holy shit, the Thanksgiving is on Thursday, like this Thursday, as in like now we're on Tuesday, and 2 days from now is Thanksgiving. So, whew, yeah, that really snuck up on all of us. But anyway, it looks like we're back in business over here. Shout out to Das Bo's Fleisch. Wait, are you saying Elon isn't the Messiah after all? We're gonna break it down and find out now.
Yeah, so I thought this one was pretty funny, guys. Yeah, pretty funny stuff. And you're gonna see the hardships of content moderation on a site like Twitter when you're trying to balance, as Elon Musk is, the necessity to have advertisers as a private corporation who only exists thanks to profit motives, and also a so-called desire for free speech maximalism or free speech absolutism, and how those two concepts are at odds, right? So Elon Musk, you guys might have noticed, actually unbanned Donald Trump on Twitter. So Donald Trump's Twitter has been reinstated. He put out a poll. Elon Musk put out a poll asking people, whether or not they wanted to reinstate President Trump. We voted on the Vanguard here the other day. We voted yes, just for the lulz, right?
Vote for content.
Exactly. And as Elon Musk said, the people have spoken. Trump will be reinstated, which is pretty funny given the fact that less than a month ago he was saying that these kind of content decisions will only be made after the council of experts and elders convene and make decisions on behalf of the platform. Like he was like, no serious decisions will be made until the council convenes, and we decide what's the best policy is. And then he just left it up to a Twitter poll anyway. So that was pretty funny, I guess.
We are the council.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that's a little bit more of a democratic way to go about it. But either way, this was met with both celebration and criticism. Also, a lot of mirth, considering the fact that now Donald Trump's tweets are once again available for everyone to retweet, quote tweet, dig up. Has so many, golden bangers from the past. Not to make light of the fascist that is Donald Trump, but the guy had some bangers. So a lot of people have been having fun with that. It's also funny because you can see his most recent tweets are like begging people. To stop the insurrection and all that stuff because he got banned like the day after the insurrection. I'm asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain no violence, please. Oh, we love the cops. As his supporters, went to war with the police on January 6th. Anyway, it's funny to relive all of that. But yeah, Donald Trump back on Twitter. Donald Trump says he's not going to start posting again because he's over on Truth Social now, which is his Twitter alternative platform. But needless to say, he is in fact back on Twitter. He can start posting again at any time he wants to. And this led to some people kind of raising the question of, well, where does this stop? Who else are you going to reinstate? Because Donald Trump wasn't the only person reinstated by Elon Musk. Several people that had their accounts banned were also reinstated, including the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene, and other folks like that. Now, someone asked an obvious question: are you going to let back on Alex Jones? Alex Jones was really one of the first victims. I don't mean to say he's a victim, but he was really one of the first people to experience the just blanket social media censorship. He got banned from every platform: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. And this was before he even lost in the court of law to the Sandy Hook families. He was just totally scrubbed off the internet, given the internet death penalty, so to speak. And that was a controversial decision, of course, at the time. But given the fact that Elon Musk has been pretending to be such a free speech absolutist and such a devout adherent to the First Amendment, a lot of people ask, including Sam Harris here, is it time to let Alex Jones back on Twitter, Elon? If not, why not? And to that, Elon Musk responded, "Suffer little children and forbid them not to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven," which is an interesting response, to which Kim.com replied, "Alex fucked up with Sandy Hook. He admitted and apologized. He also got a lot of quote unquote conspiracy theories right. If serial killers like Biden and Trump, what? Oh, sorry. They're all Freudian slip because they are fucking serial killers too. War criminals, literally. If serial liars like Biden and Trump are allowed on Twitter, then Alex Jones should be allowed too." Please reconsider in the interest of real free speech. To which Elon Musk came with a very emotional response. My firstborn child died in my arms. I felt his last heartbeat. I have no mercy for anyone who would use the death of children for gain, politics, or fame. Which was definitely a kind of unexpectedly like emotional answer. What was your reaction to this before we get into some more responses?
You know, it's crazy because when I really did sit and think about it, and I gave Elon Musk too many human compassion points, but it did make me like tear up a little bit in the back of my, like, you know what I mean? Like, you think about the thought of what made this man be such a callous fucker, and of course it was a lifelong thing of shit, right? But that absolute devastation that any human would feel holding their child, feeling their last heartbeat, like that choice of words will manipulate your emotions. And if you're not an extremely callous person, then of course, that's going to resonate with you. And you're like, of course, like, how could anybody be such an odious, villainous, insufferable person like Alex Jones to have done what he did, using the death and the slaughter of children for his own money and enrichment and fame and whatnot. 100% sign off on the sentiment here. But this is just like the same thing that politicians do. They just use their words to manipulate your emotions. But I have to give it to the guy. For the first like 10 seconds I'm looking at this, I'm like, wow, that's fucking brutal, man. That just is devastating to think about. You have the picture of him in the hospital room holding the baby, and that baby dies. Like, what the fuck? That would just ruin you if you were a father. So you have to at least like empathize with him on some human level because of that.
Of course. I mean, it's tragic that that happened to Elon Musk. And of course, that's why he seems to care more about this. However, I will say it's shockingly hypocritical, in my opinion. You'll remember he literally just reinstated Donald Trump. Was he not aware of the fact that an 8-year-old American girl was killed in a Yemen raid approved by Trump, let alone the dozens, if not hundreds, of kids that have died as a result of the drone policy carried out by former and current US presidents, which are still on Twitter? Did that not occur to him? Alex Jones, for as fucked up as his rhetoric was and how disgusting it was that he profited off of those conspiracies, he didn't actually order any drone strikes. He didn't order any actual military raids, which resulted in the death of American children. So I do think it's shockingly hypocritical. Of Elon Musk to, just joke about Donald Trump being unbanned, gleefully celebrate his return to Twitter, and then turn around and employ this kind of, emotional appeal as to why he won't reinstate Alex Jones. All of a sudden, oh, I care so much about children. I would never have any mercy for someone who used the death of children for gain, politics, or fame, even though he's literally out here posting memes about Donald Trump rejoining Twitter, who, like I said, is an actual war criminal directly responsible for the deaths of not just children, but American children.
Yeah, and on top of that, the reason that we know the name Anwar al-Awlaki is because he was extrajudicially assassinated as an American citizen on foreign soil by Barack Obama. So not only was this man killed by a U.S. president, the following president came and killed his daughter too. Again, an American. So yeah, again, that's why I said this is all politicking, right? Like, he's trying to manipulate you with his words so that you can't disagree with him. Because how could you even rebut something so tragic that anybody who is a human with a soul can, understand the pain that it caused this man? Because even if he has like only 1% of a soul, like almost a dead battery, like, it was rocked by that for sure, because it's just so devastating.
Of course, of course. Also, thank you so much, Nikki, once again for the 199. We're rebels doing Thanksgiving on Friday. That's funny. Wait, what day actually is Thanksgiving? Thursday? It's Thursday, so you'll be doing it a day after. That's cool. Well, appreciate you, Nikki. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Hope you get some time to spend with your family and eat some delicious food.
Absolutely. Shout out to you, Nikki. And shout out to Adi the Bugcatcher. Everyone has their own line when it comes to free speech, and everyone has their own way of justifying it. Yeah, that's a fair analysis, I would say. I think that just depending on what kind of society you want to build and what kind of parameters you want to impose, everybody will have a slightly different line in the sand that they're going to want to draw.
Exactly. And it kind of reminds me of after Donald Trump got banned off of Twitter, people pointed out that, well, there's like people from the Taliban, like Taliban officials on Twitter. Like, how are you going to let them stay on Twitter when you're going to kick off Donald Trump? Which is a fair point. It's like if you're going to allow certain despots and oligarchs and war criminals, you got to allow them all. Either have a blanket policy against it or for it. But it is weird when you start picking and choosing based on your own emotions. Like, oh, well, I care more about January 6th than whatever horrible crimes against humanity are going on in this country. And because we want a virtue signal about that, we're going to ban Trump. Meanwhile, leave up the fucking leader of Iran, or what I'm saying. Like, it just doesn't make sense. They should all be there, or they should all be banned. Either enforce the TOS or don't. Which is a point that Shoe0nHead actually made to Elon Musk here. She says your story is heartbreaking, but this literally is just a confirmation that you're making rules based on how you personally feel about things. No mercy for, okay, Mr. Merciful Billionaire God, can you please just run a website? Like, there are war criminals on here. And I totally agree with this point. Yes, it's heartbreaking that this happened to Elon Musk. I cannot imagine, losing a child, let alone in my own arms. That's absolutely heartbreaking. But do you not have the same emotion for the innocent children that have died as a result of the US foreign policy carried out by the war criminals, which continue to exist on your platform, Elon Musk? I just don't understand this arbitrary enforcement of the TOS based solely on your emotions, your personal experiences. And some people have called Shoe0nHead's response callous. I don't think it is. If you're going to be the content moderator of one of the most powerful social media websites and places where information is shared, you should have a consistent terms of service that is enforced consistently. You can't just be making decisions based off of, terrible tragedies that have happened in your own life. And I think that's a fair point to make.
Yeah, I feel like Shu is one of those people on Twitter or YouTube where everybody just like naturally just takes the least charitable interpretation of what she's trying to say and then like beats her over the head with it. Like, she literally starts off right here. Your story is heartbreaking. That's how we started off our analysis. Really, we were like, obviously, if you are a person that read that, you're like, oh my God, like, that's terrible. Okay. But that doesn't give you an excuse. It's kind of like when Joe Biden was running for president, and like anytime he got backed into a corner, my son Bo died. It's like, I know your son Bo died. I know that your other daughters died too, and your first wife died, and you've had a tragic ass life. Guess what? You put like 10 million black dudes in jail for no reason. You never saw a war you didn't like. You said you opposed busing because you didn't want your kids' schools turned into a racialized jungle. Okay, yeah, real quotes from Big Joe over there. You know what I'm saying? Okay, we don't have to fucking dig any deeper into that jungle comment. We know what the fuck he was saying, racist bastard. Okay, so then would it be okay for him to just wave my son Bo died? Oh, it's a tragedy. No, it's not okay. He still is in charge of shit. That doesn't mean that it wasn't a tragedy. Gavin and I are not sitting here pretending that it's not unimaginable the pain he went through when he got the phone call that his daughters and wife had died in a car crash. Could you fucking imagine? No, none of us can. It's never happened to us. But that man lived on. He moved on. He decided he wanted to stay in politics, that he wasn't just going to, resign himself. And guess what? You still have to hold somebody for a standard. So with Elon Musk right here, he is literally admitting that this is all at his own whimsy, right? It's all at his own whimsy. He bought it. He's in charge. And I think that at least Shu has every right to call him out on it, right? Like she just does. Like, hey, I'm sorry that you're using this as like a blunt weapon to stop talking about why you're not making these like inconsistent decisions. And it's like, I personally don't really give a shit if Alex Jones wasn't invited back on Twitter. Like if Elon Musk had just simply responded by saying that with the libel suits and whatnot, and the repeated violation of our TOS, we're not interested in inviting this person back to the platform. You would at least, and then he would say, if you violate X, Y, and Z, like you're ordered to pay millions of dollars for profiting off of spreading documented lies and falsehoods in a court of law, then you're not going to get your Twitter account back. Then I think we would all be like, oh, okay, well at least there's some transparency here in why this decision is going down. It does boil down to how he personally feels about things, and I think that that's fair to comment on and fair to speculate on. And I don't really see any issue at all with what you said here.
Yeah, me neither. And especially, again, given the fact that Elon Musk, not even a week or two ago, was promising that there would be this council, a content moderation council with widely diverse viewpoints. He said no major content decisions or account reinstatements will happen before that council convenes. Seemingly, that has not gone into effect yet. And these decisions are just being made willy nilly by either Elon Musk's personal appeals to emotion and his own tragic life experiences, or based on Twitter polls that people just vote on. Again, he also reinstated Kathy Griffin, Jordan Peterson, and Babylon B, and this was before the Trump decision was made, which again was put up to a vote from Twitter users. But again, no word yet about this content moderation council that will be making these decisions by convening. Not that I'm even in favor of that happening, but again, at least it would be some sort of a standard for these decisions, some sort of consistent enforcement of TOS, and not just Elon Musk being like, well, because of this tragic experience in my life, I don't want this guy on. Fuck Alex Jones, but I'm cool with war criminals being on here. I'm cool with unrepentant fucking war criminals and warlords who have way higher body counts than Alex Jones. And I'm not making any excuses for Alex Jones. I think he's disgusting, and I do think there's probably legitimate reasons to keep him off Twitter. I'm not even saying he should be back on Twitter. I'm just saying there should be some consistency to the way that these decisions are made. And seemingly there's nothing in the way of that so far. And it's just a total clusterfuck with Elon Musk calling the shots based on his own emotions, which again, Shoe0nHead doesn't, or Shoe0nHead pointed out once again here. I'll throw this one up on the screen. She says, Elon confirms he won't reinstate Alex Jones. However you feel about Alex Jones aside, am I wrong here? Like, not that there was much doubt before, but Elon just completely showed his ass. He doesn't actually care about the First Amendment or any sort of enforcement or consistency of enforcement of the TOS. And I think this was a really good point, too. Someone said, the vast majority of humans base their morality on personal experiences. I'm not trying to defend. It just really isn't surprising. And of course, that's accurate. But I think Shoe0nHead was right to point out that if he cannot separate personal from practical, that's a huge issue that no doubt will show up more in the future. He's clearly never been the freeze peach man. So if he's going to be biased, he should at least put his biases in the TOS so we could see that. And I think that's a great point, a very valid point to make.
Yep, 100%. Kind of like what I was saying with Alex Jones. If he had just come out and said, hey, Alex Jones has been found guilty in a court of law by a jury of his peers on multiple occasions. And in those instances, he was also standing in grave violation of our printed and formal terms of service. He will not be invited back on this platform because of his repeated and flagrant violations of said, TOS, and bolstered by the fact that he has been convicted in a court of law multiple times to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. Then we could see that in the TOS and we would be like, oh, based, make sure you do not get sued by and found guilty by a jury of your peers for, malicious fucking lies that you've spread about family members to, and pay damages to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. If I stand clear of that, then I can have my Twitter account, right? If that's the rules, that's the rules. But yeah, 100%, it needs to be public. And I don't think there's any doubting at this point that we probably won't get that, and that we probably will just continuously be subject to the whimsy of Elon Musk and all of his oafishness, which when you kind of understand the guy, you can kind of understand who he's going to be okay banning and who he's not, but it will never be clear and transparent, and it will never be free speech, or free speech as Shoe has coined it.
Exactly. And again, I just can't get over the appeal to emotion that Elon makes. Again, as tragic as it is what happened to his kid, he literally just unbanned guys like Kanye West. I mean, if Elon Musk knew a family member who was Jewish and they had been a victim of a hate crime against Jewish people, then you could just as easily make the same argument about reinstating Kanye West, saying, well, this guy's out here profiting off of anti-Semitic talking points. Isn't this disgusting? I have no regard for this. I have nothing but disdain for this, which is what Elon said about Alex Jones, because he's experienced the death of a child. But again, you can make this argument for any number of bigots or bad faith actors, war criminals in general, all kinds of people on Twitter that have engaged in immoral behavior. I just think it's weird to be basing these content moderation decisions based on your own personal life experiences and tragedies, as sad as they are. That's not a proper way to enforce TOS, and a company that not only is very important for information and communications, but also one that you specifically said you should think or that you think should adhere to a free speech absolutist policy, or at least an adherence to the First Amendment. So I think that's completely ridiculous. And again, just shows that Elon Musk really doesn't know what the fuck he's doing and totally over his head.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of what we've predicted. And I still maintain that I think over the next number of months, we will see Elon take less of a front, like facing a role at Twitter if he doesn't want to just completely destroy the company, which he doesn't. There has already been reporting that they're looking for a new CEO. And I imagine that, Elon will be a fucking pain in that guy's ass until that guy decides it's not worth it anymore to be CEO of Twitter. But I think that'll be largely behind the scenes, that Elon is a huge pain in that guy's ass and everybody else's ass at Twitter. But yeah, time will tell. Did want to react to this super chat from oh shit, never mind. Just megalomania on parade. These people only care about anyone but themselves, or don't care about anyone but themselves, I think maybe is what you were saying. And absolutely, these people are the most self-serving assholes on planet Earth. Imagine being a billionaire while you're watching people starve and suffer, and the only thing that you're like worked up about is like Twitter engagement is off the charts today. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah. Imagine having the power to end hunger in this country, and you're like just looking at the fucking, you spent $44 billion on Twitter. You could have ended hunger. It's the holiday time. You could have even done it for 3 months to just occupy yourself. Like, no, that's not what these people's priorities are. They don't even think about that. That's not even on their radar. That's just like, those people deserve to be poor and hungry. Like, well, I want my fucking shit to be better. Like, yeah, absolutely the definition of like megalomaniac narcissism.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Christina. Always appreciate your contributions. Thank you so much for the $4.99. And thank you also, Adi. That's pretty funny. Really appreciate the $2. He doesn't have any employees left for a council. Yeah. He's either fired most of them or they've left. So definitely a shit show going down on Twitter. I will say it did not break over the weekend like everyone was saying it would. People were like, Twitter won't last through the weekend. Well, it did. Seems to be working just fine. So maybe not all those employees were 100% necessary. Who knows? We'll have to see what happens. But yeah, Twitter did survive the weekend. But yeah, that is pretty funny. Adi doesn't have enough employees left. Yeah, and the people he was talking about including on that council were not necessarily people that I would have chosen. That you had people from like the George Bush Presidential Library and some of these other organizations that are responsible for some of the kind of censorious policies that he was trying to reform Twitter in opposition to in the first place. So I don't really understand that. It has yet to be seen if he'll actually institute such a council, but either way, thank you so much for the super chat, Adi.
It's going to be overrun by the postmodern neo-Marxists. That's what it's going to happen. That's what it's going to do. Anyway, shout out to you, Adi the Bug Catcher. Yeah, that's fucking hilarious. It is funny how the libs on the internet just need to quit with those grandiose proclamations. You get Gavin and I excited that we're going to be able to make content about how Twitter died. And then here it is, fucking still just as fucking busy as ever on Tuesday morning. But anyway, shout out to you, Adi.
Yeah, thanks so much, Adi, and really appreciate your super chat. Ebel1911, thank you so much for the generous $20 super chat. Really, really appreciate that. Did you guys see the story about DeSantis and Guantanamo Bay torture? Kyle did a video on it yesterday. I did see that. Did you get a chance to check it out, Zach?
I actually didn't watch the Kyle video, but Empire Files covered this, and Mike Preisner interviewed what's his name, Mansour Ahmad Saad Al-Dafi, who was a prisoner at Guantanamo Bay for just with no charges for, I mean, a long fucking time. I think it was 14 years. I just looked. And he witnessed this torture, and he DeSantis personally overseeing the worst of the torture at Gitmo. He went on to clean up operator for war crimes in Iraq. These atrocities should haunt him for the rest of his life. Absolutely. And it just lets you know what kind of a fucker you're dealing with when you're dealing with Ron DeSantis. This is a man who, if you can oversee brutal torture of another human being, what are you going to do when you're president? Donald Trump was at least incompetent. This man is clinically fucking just Machiavellian, odious. There's no words in the English language that can describe the fucking just disgust that you have to have in your inner core, where your conscience and your ethics and your morals are supposed to be. Where instead of a heart, you have something hateful and just wrong. And yeah, very, very disgusting shit. But that just let everybody know Ron DeSantis is not some sort of a reprieve from Donald Trump. He's a more effective evil, and he is brutal as fuck, and he has no mercy. Just like all of the other warlords of the Republican and Democratic parties.
Absolutely. And I actually just realized that Mike Preisner follows us on Twitter. That's pretty base. Shout out to Mike Preisner. We'll definitely try to get him on the podcast to talk about this, because it's a fascinating story. And of course, him and Abby do such great work. I highly recommend you give them both a follow and follow the work they do over at Empire Files and the Eyes Left podcast. Like I said, we'd love to get Abby back on the podcast, and we'll definitely try to work on getting Mike on the show to talk some more about that and what a danger that a guy like DeSantis would absolutely represent if he were to become president of the United States. God forbid. Either way, thank you so much, Ebel. Really appreciate the generous super chat once again. Thank you so much. And we'll be covering this story more in the future, hopefully with Abby or Mike. That'd be awesome. No promises, but we'll try. And also, thank you so much, Nikki O'Brien. Really appreciate the $9.99, Nikki. That's really generous of you. I salute your empathy and ideological consistency. Cheesy, but seriously, I'm a 58-year-old childless dyke, but if I had raised children, I'd like to think they would be a lot like you guys. Well, thank you so much, Nikki. That really means so much to us. You have no idea how much that means to Zach and I. We really always love seeing kind comments like that. We just consider ourselves normal people that are sharing our opinions online, but the fact that you see us that way really, really, truly means a lot and makes us feel like the work we're doing here is meaningful and important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're just loudmouths from the Midwest, but we got a lot of love for the people in our community, and we got a lot of love for the people outside of our community. So we try and keep that as our focus on all of this. And yeah, I mean, just having listeners like you, Nikki, whenever I get fucking oh my God, what am I doing with my life? Kind of capitalist infectious thoughts where it's like, what is it going to mean? Like everybody already knows your life means nothing and it never will. But people like you, Nikki, you help me suspend that belief and just feel good about what we're doing over here. And I hope that if I ever become a 58-year-old childless lesbian, that I will be a lot like you, Nikki.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nikki. We really, really appreciate your comments in the chat today and your generous donations and just your kind words in general. Thank you so much. And we are getting ready to, here in a second, invite on some universal healthcare activists. You guys might know them. We've had them on the show before, from Red Berets for Medicare for All, the link of which is in the description, as well as Whole Washington, which is a group in the state of Washington fighting for statewide healthcare, which Zach and I both think is a very important and admirable goal in the absence of a nationwide movement for universal healthcare. It's important to support state by state efforts, such as Whole Washington, such as CalCare and the New York Health Act, to try to get people within certain states healthcare. These could be voted on via ballot measures, and activists like the ones we're about to be chatting with do a lot of hard work trying to get the necessary signatures in order to make those kind of ballot measures possible. So we're going to be chatting with Scott Denoyers and Laura Fielding, and I think Andre Stackhouse as well, about the ongoing movement for Medicare for All. Zach's putting on his red beret over there. These red berets are knitted by the Red Berets for Medicare for All. Like I said, links in the description if you guys want to find out more and buy one for yourself to support the work they do. Before we invite them on, I do have to go pee really quickly. So Zach, if you want to talk for 1 second, I'll be right back.
Dope. Well, while we wait for our esteemed guest to come in here, you guys can critique me on how somebody with my head shape should appropriately wear this lovely beret. This is the thing about it. They're such great quality berets, but I'm always like, am I wearing this correctly? It's like, you don't want to put your shirt on backwards, right? It's like, wow, I got this really nice shirt. Let me just walk around with it on backwards. That's how I feel whenever I put on my beret. I'm like, I do not know. I don't know. My girlfriend wears berets all the time too. So I'm like, I need some fucking... Anyway, really appreciate everybody that's been vibing with us in the chat today. I'm going to take the wheel for a second while Gavin is relieving his bladder. And then we'll get the real guests of the show on. Common debate on that. Mike Preisner and Abby also working on a documentary called The Earth's Greatest Enemy. Yeah, we actually had Abby Martin on to talk about that documentary that they're working on, talking about the massive connection between climate change and the United States military-industrial complex. We cannot solve the problem of climate change without radically changing how we, organize and construct our armed forces in this country. Just like everything else, the reason we can't have healthcare, the reason we can't have a safe world protected from the atrocities of carbon emission is because we are spending way too much money on the military, and they're in turn turning all of that money into carbon emissions that are destroying our world and also destroying lives directly with their senseless violence. So yeah, check out our interview with Abby Martin if you want to see more about that discussion. The intro, we were joking with her, looks like the beginning of a Godzilla movie. It's a really based trailer. If you only have time to watch one thing after the show is over, watch the trailer for Abby and Mike's Earth's Greatest Enemy documentary. It's pretty based, and I'm excited for it to come out. And I believe their other documentary, Gaza Fights for Freedom, is also available for free on the internet. So yeah, lots of good work from Abby and Mike, and it looks like we got a few super chats, and we're ready to rock. Gavin?
Yeah, let's quickly address these super chats before we get our activist friends up here in the house. Thank you so much, Stephen Michael Davis. Really appreciate the $19.99. I accidentally did a charge on a previous super chat, so here's some more money. Love the show. What do you mean by I did a charge on a previous super chat? Do you know what that means, Zach?
I don't, but I'm in love with that Scuba Steve logo. Shout out to Big Daddy, one of my sister and I's favorite movies to watch over the holidays.
Gotcha. Well, either way, thank you so much, Stephen. Also, we got to get you on the show. I've seen some of your videos, and I'm a fan of your work. So we'd love to chat with you at some point on the Vanguard or go on your channel, whatever works. Charge back. Oh, interesting. I don't know what that is. Like after you give a super chat, you can take the money back or something. I didn't know that was an option. But either way, we really appreciate the contribution, man. And like I said, hit us up if you ever want to chat on our show or vice versa. Would love to have a conversation. But thank you so much for the generous super chat, man. And really glad that you're enjoying our work.
Yeah, shout out to you, Scuba Steve.
And thank you once again, Adi the Bug Catcher. Really generous $20 super chat once again. Thank you so much, Adi. Try that 365 vegan holiday roast this time if you guys have a Whole Foods nearby. It's delicious. Will do, Adi. Will do. As I was saying earlier, I don't eat turkey because I am, of course, a vegetarian. And I was interested to see if there was any decent options for turkey, because like the whole tofurkey thing kind of not great, infamously not great. But I know there are some pretty good options. I know there's a field roast turkey substitute out there. So I'll definitely look into that. Really appreciate the suggestion though, Adi. I'll definitely give that a try. Thank you so much once again for the generosity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the vegan version of tofucking. I don't know. I'm gonna find. You should sell that at Whole Foods. Jeff Bezos hit my line. I got more zingers.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adi. Really appreciate that. Always coming in clutch with those vegan recommendations. And yeah, we'll definitely send you a DM, Steven, because we'd love to chat. Again, really big fan of the work of yours that I've seen. So thank you so much once again, Steven. That's super generous of you. I only eat jive turkey, LOL. Anyway, let's get our friends of the show in here now. We got Andre, Laura, and Scott all returning to the Vanguard, all repeat guests on the program. Some of our best friends of the show. We're so in awe of the hard work you guys do on the ground. Please each introduce yourselves briefly before we get into some questions and topics of discussion today. We can start with you, Andre. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. My name is Andre. I am the campaign director of Whole Washington, the statewide ballot initiative for single-payer healthcare, as well as a co-founder of Medicare for All Everywhere, which is the ambition to create a 50-state coalition of that campaign strategy. So all about Medicare for all about universal health care all the time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andre. Welcome back to the show. Always love chatting with you. And how are you doing, Scott? Good to see you again.
Great. Thanks for having me on. My name's Scott Denoyer, founded the New York chapter of the Red Berets, Medicare for All activist, New York Health Act, Whole Washington, solidarity across through all the states to reach universal health care.
Absolutely. Welcome back to the show, Scott. Thank you so much for your time. Really looking forward to hearing from you today. And hello, Laura. Welcome back to the Vanguard. How you doing?
Hello. Hello. Thanks for having me back. Yeah, I'm Laura Fielding, and I'm the founder of the Creative Grassroots Coalition Red Berets for Medicare for All, and board member of Whole Washington for Universal Healthcare. And yeah, really quickly, I'll answer that question or musings that you were expressing, Zach, about, first of all, I have a couple more hats I would like to send to you both. So if you let me know, because it's they although they do fit most people, there are like times where there's just like, let me try a slightly different fit and see. And also, Zach, in that package, when I get around to mailing it off, there's also like a beanie in case ultimately at the end of the day you just decide, you know what, I'm more of a beanie guy, but it has a little label that said Red Berets Medicare for All on it. So
oh yeah, and just for the record, I love my red beret. The joke I was making was is like, I feel like I've got this like fine suit, but I'm wearing the jacket backwards. Like I just never know, like if I'm like making a fool of myself. Like no, I appreciate you guys so much.
The beautiful thing about it is that people, there's just so many different ways that you can wear them. So no, there's not a wrong way in my opinion. But yeah, thanks for having me back on the show and us. And
of course, you're
as
always welcome on the Vanguard. And yeah, I will say, as it gets colder, especially, I really do appreciate having this beautiful beret. It does keep my ears warm out in the chilly weather. So I never have hats for some reason. So I do genuinely appreciate having the red beret. Not only does it look awesome, but it has real practical use as well. And of course, the meaning, if you want to share what the meaning of the red berets are, if anyone's not familiar, I know that you guys have probably explained before on our platform, but just in case anyone's tuned in and be like, what the hell is going on with these red hats and their significance? If one of you would like to talk a little bit about that idea and what the purpose behind the Red Beret Army is.
I'd love it if Scott would share kind of an approximation of something that he says in the upcoming healthcare justice documentary, Healing Us. He describes why we wear these red berets so well.
Yeah, the documentary she's talking about is Healing Us. And in that, the quote that I make is, the red berets are an icon of a warrior. And by us all wearing the red berets, the red also shows the imagery projection of our healthcare system. Mine is purple and teal, as many of us know, is for suicide prevention. But the red berets are, for healthcare in general. And by showing us all wearing them together, it projects our solidarity, state by state, through the states, all together, showing that none of us fight alone. So it's a icon of a warrior, the images of solidarity, and the image of the healthcare system, all combined in one beautiful hat.
Yeah, thank you so much, Scott. The color was originally chosen to lift up the voices of nurses. National Nurses United is the largest nurses labor union to advocate for national improved Medicare for all. And of course, shout out to Cal nurses who are always working towards passing CalCare. So the idea was just knitting for nurses and the 99% crochet for care. And definitely the idea that we are in this to achieve healthcare for every single person in this country. That is without a doubt. And the way that we do that is to create an interconnected fabric of solidarity. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always so lovely to hear you guys talk about it, because there's such an intense, real solidarity through the movement that you guys have built here. And I wonder, and I'm not sure who the best one of you guys, probably all a round table, but if you guys could just give everybody a little bit of an update on what you guys have been up to. Obviously, Gavin and I know you guys are doing so much hard work behind the scenes, but sometimes it's easy for our audience to, just pause and they haven't heard you guys in a little bit. So could you maybe talk a little bit about the day-to-day of what you guys have been up to and the gears that are turning over at Red Berets?
Well, I think for an overall campaign view of whole Washington, we could turn it over to Andre, but I will say it's been a pleasure over the last couple of weeks to bring Scott back out to Washington State. He visited in end of July for a couple events for the March for Healthcare Justice that M4A Everywhere, Andre's organization, organized, and also to be out here for the showing of the private screening of Healing Us. And in that time, in July that he was here, he gathered, how many was it, Scott? 600 and how many signatures?
632.
Yeah. To which this last week, despite the cold and just all of the factors, he was able to add signatures to that count, and quite a few pages of data entry that I still have to enter to the whole Washington count. But maybe Scott could speak to a meeting that he got to come along on. We had a legislative meeting that a local RN who is a whole Washington volunteer and signature captain set up with Speaker of the House, Washington Speaker of the House, Representative Lori Jenkins, and Scott was able to come with us to meet with her. You want to say anything about that, Scott?
Oh yeah, that was worth the whole trip and any ups and lows that we've gone through the whole time, because many of you might realize that my promise to Danny at his casket was to make our lawmakers look me in the eye and see the consequences of their decision. And as Lori had mentioned, we had spoken to Lori Jenkins, which is the Washington Speaker of the House. And I've also had the opportunity, I believe, to speak with the New York Speaker of the House, Carl Heastie, and Senate Majority Leader Andrea Cousins here in New York. So I was able to take my experience from those two conversations that I had with the New York lawmakers to Speaker Jenkins and explain to her how, what happened to Danny. And I explained this to those two politicians and how we had the votes to pass the New York Health Act and they still didn't call it, and expressed to her how we as the people see what our politicians are doing and it's not right. And I mean, I was also expressed to Speaker Jenkins about how Vice President Kamala Harris shared Danny's story and then 3 weeks later introduced a plan that would have rewarded his murderers, and that we see these actions. We aren't okay with vote blue no matter who, that I'm going to always vote my morals. And if they don't represent me, then why should I represent them? So it was very powerful for me to be able to once again continue to fulfill my promise to Danny, as well as make sure our politicians understand what we see, that when what they do, and she was very receptive, I might add. Of course, we didn't expect her to sign on to whole Washington within the half-hour pitch, but she had suggestions as how we could better approach politicians to get them to sign on. That's supportive, and I will take that as a win, because she's told us she believes healthcare is a human right, and she supported our activism. Even she took the bill and she's going to read through it. Hopefully we'll have some positive feedback from there. I don't know, Laura, do you have anything else to say about that experience?
Talking directly with Representative Kilmer and formerly Representative Denny Heck and numerous other elected officials, I did feel that we were being listened to, truly listened to by Representative Jenkins, as opposed to we activists begin to see really quite clearly when we're just receiving a line of talking points, and it didn't feel like talking points. She did a lot of listening and making some notes, and certainly took a petition, which again, when we unfold the whole thing, is the entire language of the petition, and therefore, and also the bills that we'll be reintroducing, but Andre will get into that. So yeah, overall, when we look at the support that the New York Health Act has been written and around for 40 years, as compared with whole Washington that is relatively new, we have some work to do on the legislative leg of our strategy. But so the list of endorsers or co-sponsors as of right at this moment is less than. It's what we're working on. And it was a really powerful thing to be able to go straight to Representative Speaker of the House Jenkins, who is my rep, to say, we have collected, or 4,007 of your constituents have signed I-1471. So that's like a specific number, and it's a pretty powerful number, actually. And to me, it's sort of like us letting her know this is what's possible as what's been possible now, and as we grow our coalition and grow our volunteer base. Just imagine how many more signatures that we can collect. So hopefully we have your full attention with that.
Absolutely. That's so impressive. And also I wanted to shout out Adi. Thank you so much, Adi the Bug Catcher, once again for the $10. I qualitatively know Medicare for All is economically feasible, but I could use resources with actual numbers to point to moderates and right wingers who challenge Medicare for All. Any recommendations? P.S. I'll definitely buy at least 2 berets. And I did put the link in the description as well as the chat if you guys want to support the red berets and buy yourself one of these beautiful berets to support the work they're doing. So that's really sweet of you, Adi. Does anyone on the panel have any recommendations as far as resources with actual numbers to point to the economic feasibility of Medicare for All? Is that something anyone wants to add a contribution to?
I did go ahead and throw the CalCare National Nurses United info in there for him, just as a quick one, just to let everybody know we did throw that in the chat.
So I think probably the best resource that gets kind of widely recommended is called Medicare for All, A Citizen's Guide. And I can't remember the author right now, but he is a well-known national figure on Medicare for All, kind of in the done a lot of I think advice on the Senate and House bills. I'm really going to hate myself if I can't remember the name. I'll probably look it up in a minute. But that's like a book. The numbers that I often bring to the conversation that I think really ground the conversation is that between 45,000 and 60,000 preventable deaths happen every year in our country, due primarily to lack of access to healthcare that those people can afford. And so when you just sort of start with, people die, I think that can be very persuasive. And then the other one is just medical bankruptcy, which I think most people intuitively kind of grasp that you shouldn't go bankrupt just because you need medical care. And the number that I think, and these are kind of, it depends on exactly which study you look at. There's some variation, but I try to be fairly conservative with these numbers. And in the United States, there's about 500,000 bankruptcies where the primary cause that's listed is medical expenses. And so when you basically take these two numbers that have that kind of highest impact, like going bankrupt or dying, and then you say, in Canada, those numbers are 0, right? In most other countries that you would compare to the United States in terms of development and wealth, the number would be 0. It really, 45,000 to 60,000, that's like the number of people who die in traffic fatalities every year, right? And when you imagine that we could actually eliminate that, I think that thinking big is actually often easier than thinking small. So having these really big sort of summary statistics to ground the conversation, there's a million smaller statistics about, how much money gets saved where, how much better it could be distributed and stuff. But I think they're a little harder to grasp. And so that's why I recommend the very many books and studies that are out there if you're really ready to become a student of this.
Awesome.
But,
yeah, and it does look like the Medicare for All, A Citizen's Guide is available for like $3 on eBay. If anyone's interested in checking that out, it does appear to be pretty cheap. Also, of course, you can always bring up the fact that America's the wealthiest country in the world, yet Norway, Japan, the United Kingdom, Kuwait, Sweden, Bahrain, Canada, the UAE, Denmark, Finland, etc., all have single-payer healthcare, and we don't. So there's really no excuse for us to not be keeping up with the rest of the developed world. Again, given that we're the so-called greatest country in the world and definitely the richest country in the world, there's really just no excuse. And I think that's a pretty salient argument, even for people on the right wing and moderates and stuff like that, because they can understand that concept that we can at least keep up with, if not exceed, the quality of healthcare in other countries that are in the developed world.
Yeah, and just to piggyback onto that, if the other common pushback that you get from individuals when they're like, "Oh, well, that will work in other countries, but that won't work in the United States. There's just too many of us. That's why Denmark and Sweden, they have smaller population sizes that they're working with." But there was just a bunch of headlines about a week or two ago about how Germany in 2023 is poised to overtake the GDP of Germany and become the fourth wealthiest economy in the entire world. Germany, much smaller country, typically one of those countries right wingers point to. It's like, oh, it works over there because they're small. We just roll out the red carpet for a pro CalCare argument there as well. And shout out to you, Adi, for picking up that book. I'm sure it'll be a great read.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Andre, if you would like to chat a little bit about some of the updates over at Whole Washington, let us know what you're up to. Let us know what kind of progress is being made, and how people can help if they want to.
Yeah, and I'll just squeeze in the other kind of summary statistic that's always good to remember is that we pay approximately twice per capita in the United States for our healthcare while failing to achieve the universal coverage. So that's a good one to bring in. But yeah, with Whole Washington, we are nearing the end of the initiative campaign. So we have till the rest of the year to gather signatures. And we're currently at just shy of 80,000, which would put us at 20% of the way there. So with the time that we have left and the amount of signatures we have, a lot of people, wonder if we're going to make it and kind of where that puts the campaign and stuff. And I guess what I would say is that, we can't always anticipate the future, and there's always growth that happens across the campaign. But we are always sharing the actual signatures that we have and the amount of time, because we really believe in building this campaign on top of transparency. This is a volunteer effort, which means that people need to be informed, to make decisions about how they're going to volunteer their time and stuff. So we want to be really straight with people about, how many signatures we have and how much time we have left, and kind of acknowledge that reaching the ballot, the signatures we need to make the ballot this year looks like a huge challenge. But we are still encouraging people to go out there and gather signatures because of some of the things that Laura has talked about. So being able to go into a representative's office and lobby them to support the legislation, and being able to say, well, we have thousands of signatures in your district. And to put that into context, many races at the state level are won by just 1,000 to 2,000 votes. So if you're able to come in with that many votes from people that you've gathered a signature for, affirming their support for healthcare, it shows that it's like an election critical issue. And so, we're trying to get the most as we can out of the rest of this year. And so the call is to keep gathering signatures, to keep trying to recruit people into the campaign. And there's a few different ways to think about that. One is that the first signature is by far the hardest one you're ever going to collect, or maybe the second one, right? So the first one can be yours. But the getting, that board into your hand, getting that volunteer trained up out to a signature gathering event, that can take a lot of work, right? But the next one comes quite a bit easily, right? Quite a bit more easily. You make that first ask, somebody says, sure, I'll sign that. And then the next one and the next one gets easier and easier. So when it comes to our recruitment and training efforts, being able to actually go out and gather signatures is like the best training and development that we can offer. And then on top of that, it really helps us build that like recognition out in public. We are preparing to introduce into next year's legislative session. We have introduced it in the House a number of times. And it looks like our number of co-sponsors in the House is likely to grow because several of our supporters from the House actually won their races for the Senate. So I wrote a blog post about this, but none of our incumbents lost office. A couple of them retired. But a number of candidates who were running for office also had endorsed us and got elected. So in the House, we've about kept even, maybe a couple of new co-sponsors. In the Senate, it looks like we're going to grow slightly. And once we secure sponsors, we haven't actually introduced in the House before. So just getting it introduced is a huge step forward for us. And in the Senate, we've never received a hearing. So that's kind of like our major Senate goal. But we're going to be securing our sponsors and then asking all of our people to set up meetings with their constituents, to ask them to come on and co-sponsor, to see how far we can get it this year. But the thing about the whole Washington strategy is that we're always showing that we're growing this movement out in public, right? So instead of going to these legislators and asking, can you please sign this legislation? Can you please do this for us? What we're always saying is, we want you to do this because it's the fastest way to do it. And you have the authority to save all of these lives and save all of our money and all of our time. But we're always planning to get back out there and put it on the ballot until this work is done. And so I can't guarantee, because I think we're still kind of finishing this campaign and making our decisions for the future. But we are going to be out there getting this on the ballot until this work is done. And hopefully all of that will be sooner rather than later. We're taking the fastest path that we can. And I just want to zoom out for a sec to Medicare for All everywhere and the national level, because healthcare did incredibly well on the ballot. And I think that it's under discussed even among Medicare for All activists. But, if you look at national Medicare for All, it's not clear to me that we've gained or lost significant ground. I think John Fetterman is likely to be a new co-sponsor in the Senate. In the House, I don't think we lost anyone, maybe gained a couple. The Democrats lost a few seats, so I could see it kind of going either direction, but only slightly. But long story short, I don't think the story on that is going to be that different in the next session. We'll see. We hope so. But where did we see some success? Well, Measure 111 was a constitutional amendment to make healthcare a right in Oregon. There are some criticisms of it along the lines of, well, it's a right to access affordable healthcare. And to me, that's language. What 100% matters is what comes of it, the implementation. So we'll see. I hope that they achieve kind of the ideals that are set down in this new constitutional right. But that won a very narrow victory. In Massachusetts, non-binding Medicare for All resolution was put on the ballot in 20 different districts and passed in all 20 of them. And then my personal favorite, and it's interesting because Medicaid can take a fair amount of beating out there. A lot of people don't seem to respect it quite as much as Medicare, but Medicaid itself is a juggernaut. It actually insures more people than Medicare itself. And South Dakota is the latest state to join the slate of Medicaid expansion states, and very relevantly did it on the ballot. And so even though it's a red state, even though their governor has blocked it, again, their people knew that they needed the healthcare. They knew they could put it on the ballot, and they passed it without that support from their leadership. So this stuff can do really, really well when given to voters. And I think that we are just trying to make that case as loudly, as often, and across as much of the country as possible, to show that, whether you're a candidate who's wondering if you can take on this issue, it's good for your career to support universal health care. And whether you're talking about putting it on the ballot directly, whether you're talking about advancing the bill, this is popular among voters. And we're trying to really build that awareness and build that movement made of ordinary people who are willing to make it kind of the main issue that they're working on.
Yeah, what you said about South Dakota is really inspiring because, one of the things Gavin and I talk about all the time on our show is the fact that, because of the fact that our elected officials are almost unanimously bought off by major corporations, by big healthcare, by big pharma, the lobbyists line their pockets and, keep them from voting in the best interest of the people, that, perhaps our best avenue is through ballot initiatives, especially in a state like South Dakota, where it's, just an ironclad Republican control. But on the flip side of that, we know that it is a popular issue amongst voters, even if they're going to turn around and vote for Republican politicians on an issue by issue case. And in a city or in a place where the population is smaller, you have a popular issue. It's going to be harder for the establishment to turn out regular registered voters in opposition to it if they're just are less people there. So yeah, I am. That's incredibly exciting and a little more surprising than the win in Oregon, which maybe people could have seen coming. But yeah, thank you for sharing that, Andre.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to talk a little bit about electoralism in general. I wanted to ask you guys what you're thinking about the movement for Medicare for All broadly nationwide as it relates to electoralism, because obviously in the post Bernie Sanders era, it's not a secret that the momentum behind the nationwide calls for Medicare for all, universal healthcare, single payer system have kind of died out, unfortunately, because people don't really feel like there's the viability in the same way that there was when we had a popular presidential candidate campaigning for this policy and popularizing this policy and putting it at the forefront of the discussion. So, you guys are actual activists, and I was just wondering what you think about that. Are you hoping that there's another presidential candidate, for example, someone like Bernie Sanders, that can kind of refocus the left's attention on this issue? Or do you think that that's a bit of a fool's errand that won't amount to anything, and that the time and effort that would be put into such a exercise would ultimately be useless, because we all saw what happened to Bernie, and perhaps there's better avenues, more productive avenues for people's activism? What do you guys think about that? I'm really interested to hear your thoughts.
Well, my thought is basically that the day Medicare for all becomes a law in this country, it will be the day that the movement is so powerful, right, that the people who co-sponsor it and the president who signs it can't imagine not doing it. It feels like they have to, right? And I think what people are observing today is more that that's not where we are, right? It's not so much a commentary on what the path is. It's more progress report, and clearly that's not the case. And I think that one of the things that we need to maybe approach differently is, I do think we need to encourage people to take this on as a major electoral issue. I've been in a number of meetings of Democratic Party organizations, progressive organizations, and I'm there to talk about whole Washington. And before I go on, they kind of do like a quick order of business. Senator Murray is up for re-election, and do we pass a resolution to endorse her? And they kind of run through, she's got these number of signature issues, right? These are sort of her main things. And then they'll even sometimes call out, notably, she is not a co-sponsor of Medicare for all, but X, Y, and Z, right? And then the LD will just vote to endorse her, right? And I think that if we want to see Medicare for all gain the kind of political power it needs to win, it needs that person to raise their hand and say, I don't think that we can endorse Patty Murray if she doesn't endorse Medicare for all, right? And it requires people to say, it's not just, this is an issue that I support, right? It's an issue that I'm actually willing to exercise my political power over, whether that's as a voter, because that's how that attitude is going to trickle up to the legislator, right? If you, the voter, aren't going to have that hard line, then why should the legislator have that hard line on Medicare for all while they're in office, right? And so I think that it's really a matter of, we need to train ourselves, but also our legislators. It's like, get the endorsement. That's great, right? But then call them up the next week and say, as an endorser of Medicare for all, don't you think you would love to do this event promoting it, right? Or whatever it is, you have to escalate to the next step. You have to use a carrot and a stick, right? So a lot of the times the way that these things aren't supported is, you send a, hey, would you like to endorse whole Washington? And you just don't hear anything back, right? And that's in some cases, it's just because they're buried under communication. In other cases, it's because they don't want to. But, even a no can be a powerful thing, right? It's get the no on record. Say, thank you. I hear that you are not supporting this. Would you like to say why, right? And generally speaking, and this is the power of this issue, right? Advocating against universal health care sounds really bad. Doesn't sound bad when you do it, which is why they don't want to vote on it. They don't want to vote it down. They don't want to speak against it. They'd rather it just be not discussed. And so to me, instead of just like shutting down when you get that no, the way is to escalate. Say that into this mic. Say it publicly on this stream. I just want to make sure everyone's really clear where you are on this issue. And make them feel that heat of, I'm not going to get away with kind of just mumbling past this, right? What I say is going to come back, right? It's going to be on the social networks. If we can get it into the media, it's going to be in the media. The little clip is going to come back and be played every time I try to get elected. And I just don't want to deal with that. So make it easier to give the yes than the no, right? Make them feel like, I'm saving my own skin by supporting this. I have to. my constituents demanded of me.
Absolutely. And do either Laura or Scott have anything to add to that, and any closing thoughts in general that you would like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I think Laura, actually all three of us, I think, believe that our path forward, I think Laura coined the term fight on all fronts on this. That's where we're all at. I mean, many of you know, like we were saying earlier in the show, I was out in Tacoma collecting signatures for whole Washington, but yet I'm over here in New York working on the New York Health Act as well. I'm pretty sure a lot of the Red Berets are coming from Washington this next coming Easter. I'm sure you guys might remember on the Vanguard where I had the action last year on April 9th in front of Fidelis Care. Well, this year, April 9th happens to fall on Easter, and we're bringing it back to Fidelis Care in New York City this time. So anybody that wants to have Easter in New York City and join a protest, we're going to be there. Again, demanding for the resignation of Father Patrick Frawley, which is now the VP of Centene. But yeah, that's where we're at. We're starting on a state level issue, not one state at a time, but through the states. We build the momentum and we get the grassroots activists going, and we build a swell, and we push that, like Andre was saying, we have to make it so uncomfortable for our legislators that they're forced to do this. They have no choice. So that's where we're at. And also look forward to announcements about the documentary Healing Us that we're all involved in. It's up for consideration for the Sunset Film Festival. I believe I said that right.
Sundance?
Not a big movie guy. Yes.
The Sundance Film Festival?
Yes, it's being considered. We're hoping to hear an announcement of their awards. If it is, you can be sure we're going to make a lot of noise about that.
Hell yeah.
Got new coffee cups out too. You look for those.
Can people find? Are there? Is there somewhere? Are those on the Red Beret website or?
Well, these here I've been using to fund a new side business I'm doing for healthcare. I've got a bunch of vinyl and sublimation. That's what everything's going on behind me. So we can do signage, and we could do T-shirts, hats, mugs, and the whole concept is I'm going to offer my services for free, as long as, for signs and things like that for healthcare. As long as they just pay for the materials. But on the side, I'm also just selling coffee cups and things of that nature. Just if anybody wants a mug, just DM me on my Twitter account. And the coffee cups we're selling for $12 a piece plus shipping, but they're like $11 or $12 to ship it across the country. So it ends up being $25 from a $12 mugs. But
well, I just put the link to Scott's Twitter in the chat, so everyone hit that up, and make sure to follow all of our activist friends on Twitter. They post great updates and info about the work they're doing. Emogi wanted to say thank you, Scott, which obviously we echo. You're doing such great work out there, so really appreciate your contributions to this movement, and thanks for your time today, of course. Is that your closing words, Scott, for today?
Just as always, we're always asking everybody to get involved. Just saying you support us is not enough. We need just standing out there holding a sign is an action. You don't have to get into a megaphone. You don't have to organize your own events. Just join us. We need people out there. We need our politicians to see all the bodies out there and just cheering us from the sidelines. Sadly, I wish it was enough, but it isn't. We need everybody, all hands on deck all the time, because sure as hell the insurance companies have got that going on.
Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you once again, Scott. We really appreciate your work and for joining us today to share what you've been up to. Also, shout out to you, Adi, once again for the $10. Letting you guys know that if any of you need software or automation tools built, to hit up Adi. He'd be happy to volunteer for the work you guys do. So that's really sweet of you, Adi. And yeah, if any of you guys want to get Adi's contact information from me, you can hit me up and I can forward that to you. I'm assuming that's the best way that Adi would like us to get you guys in touch if that would be something you'd be interested in. But either way, thank you for the contribution, Adi. That's really kind of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to you, Adi, and shout out to you, Scott. Really appreciate you sharing that today. And we hope you're staying warm up there in New York. I'm not sure what region of New York you're in, but I happen to know that it's been a goddamn blizzard up there. So I hope you and your family are staying nice and warm.
Absolutely. And Laura, do you have any final words or anything you wanted to share with our audience before we get you guys out of here?
Yeah, I think I would just echo really what Scott has just said, is that, we need people, actions, big and small. That is one of the things about wearing the platform in some way or another. The visibility is really, really important. So appreciate people that commented that they were going to purchase Red Berets. It helps whole Washington fundraise, because we're always trying to get out and grow the campaign. In answer to what you were asking about electoralism, I guess there's still, I think, a lot of people who see this as a sort of one or the other thing, and I just see it much more interconnected than that. I know one thing that has happened for sure for me over the last couple of years after gathering thousands of signatures is that my standards electorally, if anyone were to run, both for president and at any level, my standards for politicians become more and more exacting every single cycle that we get through. And at this point, at least in Washington state, and I think hopefully as other states begin to get out and look at the ballot process, it should be an interconnected effort. So if someone was going to run for local office here in Washington, for example, I would want to hear, my name is such and such. If elected, I will co-sponsor and organize and fight to pass national improved Medicare for all, or the whole Washington Health Trust, again, depending on what level, what seat they're running for. And in the meantime, I am out collecting signatures for Initiative 1471 to get universal health care to the ballot. So would you please sign the petition? And I would appreciate your vote. We have to get much, much smarter about how we do this. And if a politician at any level would like, my vote, then they will be out actually being an activist. We can no longer afford people to just pay lip service. I love the way that Andre talks about how when people sign the petition, that's moving from support level into you just did an action. And that's a great way of looking at it, so signing the petition, you're already doing an action. Wearing a Medicare for All button or a t-shirt and going into the store so that could potentially strike up a conversation, that is doing an action. But we do need people to do more than just support. So when we say, 70% people support this policy, if we had just a significant portion of that number out doing some level of action, we'd be in a completely different realm of possibility right now. So I highly encourage everyone who sees this to just consider how they could bring just a little more action into the support that you already have for this issue. Thank you very much.
Of course, always great to see you, Laura, and great to see you, Andre and Scott, as well. Do we have any final wrapping up thoughts? So great to see you guys. I know we covered a lot. Yeah, floor is everybody else's.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
A few in.
Sure, go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, so just a few things. If you're in the Washington or Seattle area, a few things that I want folks to know about. So at 2 p.m. on December 6th, we're actually going to try to get a resolution through the Seattle City Council. It's a non-binding resolution for single payer. And Seattle City Council was the first council to pass one of these. So that was maybe like 2017. So we wanted to update it to include the latest versions of the Medicare for All bills in the House and the Senate. But also we want to pass it as a hybrid resolution. So increasingly, we're asking these resolutions to be both, we support it at the state level and the federal level. And so that will be on December 6th, and you can email the city council members now and you can sign up for public comment at noon on December 6th. So if you mark your calendar, and I don't know, I'll try to get the link out there. The other thing is that Washington State has a universal healthcare commission, which is tasked with creating a universal healthcare system over the next few years. And there's a lot of reasons why, we hope that it will be successful, but don't feel that it's, guaranteed success. But what we do know is that the more representation strong single payer activists have on that commission, the better the result is going to be. And they're actually expanding that commission to take a few new members. So if you can sign up to sit on that commission, that's a way that you can get involved in this. And then, so that's like the local stuff out here in Washington, but this is a national show, and that's why we have Medicare for All everywhere. So if you want to work on this in your state, the best way to do that is to sign up for MedicareForAllEverywhere.org. And we meet on Mondays. We have a Slack. But what we want to do is really create that campaign or amplify that campaign in every state, right? So maybe you've never worked on this before and you don't even know where to begin. Well, we can get you plugged in to the people doing work on the ground in your state. If there isn't a campaign in your state yet, we want to help you create it, right? So whether your state has initiatives or not, whether there's already a bill written or not, we have the resources necessary to develop the policy, develop the political strategy, and kind of set it into motion. And, getting that going in all 50 states and all of the U.S. territories is a really big project. And some states are much farther along than others. But our goal is really to create that across the entire country and then to make them, connected so that they can mutually help one another. So MedicareForAllEverywhere.org to do that. And then the very, very last one, I promise. So Whole Washington brings in about $1,600 to $1,700 a month in recurring contributions, monthly recurring contributions. You might notice that that's not a huge amount of money. It's not a huge amount of operating budget to run a statewide campaign on. If you look at the work we do and compare it to, say, getting one person elected to Congress, you're getting this work on the cheap. Congressional races are incredibly expensive. You're raising minimum hundreds of thousands of dollars to have any kind of shot. I currently am a volunteer with Whole Washington. I hope that over the next, campaign, next several months, that we might get a contract finalized for me. But if you really think about $1,700 a month, I could take 100% of Whole Washington's money and barely have enough to, get through my rent that year. So if you can go to wholewashington.org/donate, those small Bernie Sanders monthly contributions, $10, $27, whatever you can do. But those recurring contributions are a way that anyone, no matter where you are, you could be way outside of the United States, you can contribute to this movement. And those small recurring contributions help us plan, they help us budget. And so it might not seem like that much money a month, but it actually makes a really huge difference. So wholewashington.org/donate if you want to help fund some of this movement.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. We've posted some links in the chat for some of the stuff you guys mentioned. We'll also be posting a standalone separate video of this conversation. So you guys can share that if you want afterwards, and hopefully get out the information to more people. But we really, really respect you guys and the work you do so much. You're great friends of the show. And just thank you so much for the work you're doing.
Absolutely. Great to see you guys. I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll looking forward to getting you back in the seat on the show.
Solidarity.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Solidarity.
Thank you, comrades. Yeah, awesome chat as always with the Red Beret folks. They're doing such good work. We always love chatting with them. So inspiring hearing from them and all the hard work they're doing on the ground. Everyone support Whole Washington if you're able to, and everyone support Red Berets for Medicare for All. It's a great way, even if you aren't into wearing berets, it's just a great way to get some money in their pockets to help with the activism they're doing. Because as Andre was just talking about, it's unfortunately very expensive to run a movement like this, let alone a successful movement. So every dollar really goes a long way when you're talking about these activists. They're doing unsung work out here. This is thankless activism, and we have so much respect for the hard work that they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Impossible to listen to these guys and not be moved by the real lived experience of somebody like Scott, the tireless activism of people like Laura and Andre, and as you said, Gavin, this is unsung work. This is work that this is the good that they're doing in the darkness without any applause, right? So nothing but admiration and intense solidarity with these folks. And I will not listen to any sideways comments in the chat about these lovely hand knit berets. Even though I don't know how to wear them fashionably, trust me, it can be done.
Absolutely. And like I said, I actually genuinely appreciate having this hat now that it's getting cold outside. My ears are always freezing, so I really do find some utility in it. But either way, great conversation. Always glad to platform the Red Berets and just get some more focus on the movement for universal healthcare. As I said, in the post-Bernie era, it's definitely a bit of a depressed movement compared to where it was. And that really saddens me, given the fact that it really was put forefront in the discourse and was made a serious goal of the left-wing movement in this country. I want to get it back to that point with or without a Bernie Sanders-like leader. And it's organizations on the ground doing the state-by-state organization work like Whole Washington, like CalCare, like Red Berets that are going to keep this movement alive. So it's really important to support them, to platform their voices, and to help out where we can. So I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation and that platform. And hopefully, if you're interested in joining the fight for Medicare for all and making sure that people don't forget why it's important that we fight for Medicare for all, I hope you found that useful.
Yeah, absolutely. 40,000 people die every single year, preventable deaths. All they need is access to healthcare. We live in the richest country in the world by a fucking fat margin. All these other countries have figured it out. I sound like Donald Trump. Every other country has it. Why can't we have it? We're the best country. All these other countries have it. They're not the best country. We're the best country. And we have, it's true. Rings a bell. Why the fuck are we letting people die in the streets of our country because they don't have access to health insurance? That's riddled me that, Congress. So these are the fuckers that are out there doing the hard work, fighting, and we would all do well to support them.
Absolutely. And we do have one more quick segment that we wanted to talk about. Wanted to discuss the recent Bad Faith podcast conversation with Mr. Ryan Grimm. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but there is a specific segment from this conversation that I thought was worth spotlighting and worth discussing and reacting to. And that's a little bit about the discussion, or a little bit of discussion about Hakeem Jeffries, who appears to be the upcoming speaker. Nancy Pelosi is, of course, stepping down from that role. And he won't be the Speaker of the House. Sorry, he'll be the minority leader of the House for the Democrats. And Briahna Joy Gray wanted to ask Ryan Grimm a little bit about this. I thought it turned into a bit of an interesting conversation about the lack of pressure we see from House progressives, from squad members to this decision, and the lack of resistance in general we see from these progressives to the passing of a torch from Nancy Pelosi to an even more corporate Democrat, an even more anti-progressive Democrat in a guy like Hakeem Jeffries. So I thought this was a valuable conversation. Let's take a listen and react.
PSYOP, Ryan Grimm.
Elephant in the room that we haven't talked about yet is who the presumptive new leadership is. Everyone's talking about Hakeem Jeffries. Let's play a brief clip setting up who he is for those who might not know him and who might be inclined to take MSNBC pundits for granted when he's described as a progressive.
Someone said to me, they said, Hakeem, you're going to Israel a fifth time? I said, listen, I'm from New York City. And back home in New York City, we consider Jerusalem to be the sixth borough. As long as I have the opportunity to serve in Congress, I'm going to make sure that aid continues in a strongly robust fashion, no conditions.
Jeffries has gone on to support legislation that would punish companies for endorsing the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israel. And it's clear that under his leadership, the Democratic Party will be just as adversarial to leftists hoping to win primary elections. The American Prospect reported on his prior activities crushing the left. He started the Team Blue PAC last year to help fund the campaigns of incumbent centrist Democrats against left-wing challengers. And his main ally on that project is Rep. Josh Gottheimer, the corporate Democrat who was instrumental in sinking the social welfare programs in the Build Back Better legislation. Prospect noted that the formation of Team Blue was likely about, quote, settling scores with young squad-adjacent progressives. As they say, meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
That was from the good folks over at Means TV, who I know The Intercept reported on when they did the first ad for AOC that got her so much notoriety. So shout out to Means TV for that little bit of coverage. Ryan, what should we know about the man?
Yeah. People who kind of look at the world in a black and white way have a hard time knowing when things are going to get worse. But like for the left, when it comes to the leadership of the Democratic Party, things just got worse. Like believe it or not, like there is a more hostile, there is a more hostile leadership than there was under Pelosi, and Pelosi was out in public making fun of the squad. You know, remember in that New York Times interview, and like basically any other chance she got, the Green Dream, whatever else she could come up with. Hakeem Jeffries out there organizing, raising money, funneling it in corporate money into his own PAC, coordinating with AIPAC and DMFI to run outside spending operations against progressives in primaries. Like that's who is becoming the leader of the party without a challenge from the left. Jeffries, and what's remarkable is that Jeffries is a leader of the New York machine, and New York just cost Democrats the House. Like this corrupt like machinery.
That's such a good point. That's such a good point. So
you can't fail in this world.
Yeah. So at our last episode, we asked with Zohran Mamdani and Ross Barkan, two experts in the muckety muck of New York, is there going to be any accountability for the people who kind of let this happen on their watch? But for the losses in New York, it's possible that Democrats actually could have held on to the House as well as the Senate. And it seems like the resounding answer here, with Hakeem Jeffries being elevated to the speakership post, is no.
Yeah, and Adriano Espaillat might get the DPCC position in leadership. Yeah, it's wild. Like you would think that if you're a top player in the party machinery, whose corruption and incompetence shockingly cost Democrats the House of Representatives, that you would not then be rewarded with the leadership position in the minority that your incompetence and corruption helped to create.
Exactly. So, I mean, help me understand this. How did Hakeem Jeffries get into a position where he is not only the presumptive heir to Nancy Pelosi's position, but also got so much power? I mean, these things are obviously related. We talk abstractly about this idea of being powerful and maneuvering oneself into that position, but what does that actually look like?
It's AOC's fault for knocking Joe Crowley off. Because Joe Crowley would be in this position. If,
See, I knew we were going to be to blame her for something here.
Yeah.
No. But was Crowley going to be that much better than Hakeem Jeffries?
He was a little less hostile, like personally and like strategically to the left. Mm-hmm. He was just as in bed with the developers and the Wall Street.
Okay, so let's just break this down for 1 second. Well, let's talk about the insanity that we've heard over the last 3 or 4 minutes. So one, we've heard a clip of Hakeem Jeffries say that he is going to unquestionably, without any kind of standard or any fund Israel, right? He even went on to make that really cringy joke about how it was the 6th borough. Okay, didn't love that. But the other thing that I think has to be said that Ryan Grimm points out, and this is one of those things like, fuck all the Ryan Grimm haters. This guy knows the weeds of politics well. Connecting the dots and being like, if this was about being successful, if this was about making the Democratic Party grow, if this was about reaching out to new voters and taking it seriously. Like, okay, we agree Nancy Pelosi's aged out. She's no longer going to be the best face for the party. She's going to seem like a little too old school for younger voters that we're trying to reach here. Let's have a young guy. Like, on paper, that all sounds fine, except for you went and picked the guy that's responsible for you, like, showing your ass in New York. Like, in New York, it's supposed to be a reliable blue state. The state that gave us Chuck Schumer, the state that gave us Hillary Rodham Clinton as a fucking senator, the state that gave us Kristen Gillibrand. These are not fucking, this is just a neoliberal stronghold. You don't even have to put up a progressive. If you do, they'll win, as is evidenced in New York City when they run in tight races and they don't get massively outspent by the Democratic Party during the primaries. But instead, you have this guy, Hakeem Jeffries, who is the most, like, if he were a NASCAR driver, you wouldn't be able to fucking look anywhere without seeing his just logos, like fucking Raytheon, fucking everything all over this guy, right? Just by the books, corporate stooge, will do the bidding of the establishment. And then you go on to reckon with the fact that not only are we getting a new quote unquote Nancy Pelosi, they called it new boss, same as the old boss. This is a worse boss. It's a worse boss, except he's kind of handsome and young looking, so people will just excuse whatever the fuck she does, or he does, excuse me. Like, Nancy Pelosi at least looked like a Raggedy Ann. She looked like an old fucking lady that nobody was gonna like the kind of lady that, get off my fucking lawn, you shithead. Like, yeah, that's the kind of energy you get from a lady like Nancy Pelosi, because she looks like her flesh is about to rot off her fucking bones, right? Every time you look at her, you look down here. I mean, it's scary. It's like looking at Dianne Feinstein or something, right? Like, this is like not marketable to the people, right? The Democratic Party is smart enough to understand that, but it's not about winning. It's not about getting anything new to the voters. It's not about expanding their stake or anything. It's about, okay, how do we suppress the people that actually want change, who actually want healthcare, who actually want it to be affordable to live in the state of New York and in New York City, people who want things like rent control, people who want to take on the climate, people who maybe would like to stop giving billions of dollars to Ukraine when we don't have fucking health insurance here. Okay. No, can't have that. It's all irrelevant. We could get starched for the next 25 years. What we need is a guy that's going to be good at fighting the inner Democratic Party battles, i.e. squashing anybody who isn't a rabid, blood-sucking corporatist. And it looks like Hakeem Jeffries is like an Obama at doing that shit. Like, Obama was a well-spoken, gorgeous face, likable guy. You almost deserved the racist accusations if you were like, this guy is a fucking like, no, he was an amazing orator. That's why he duped the entire country, right? He was a villain. I worry that that's what we're setting ourselves up with the new speakership.
Absolutely. And the fact that Nancy Pelosi is just passing the torch to Hakeem without any input from the caucus, it's just really proof that there was no point in the squad ever going along to get along with her in the first place. It really dispels this notion that, oh, well, they're just playing the long game. And if they appease her here, and if they vote for her here, and if they, do this here, then maybe someday she'll reward them and take their input into consideration. Clearly fucking not. She didn't collaborate with the more progressive members of the caucus in order to decide on a new leader that would be a good fit for everyone. She doesn't give a fuck. She picked the most anti-progressive successor as humanly possible in a huge spitting in the face to her left flank. No regard whatsoever for the progressive priorities or goals of the squad members. So I really just think it dispels this notion that any sort of long game they may have been playing had any usefulness to it. They just got duped. They should have forced the vote in the first place. They should have never voted for Nancy Pelosi. And if they were going to, they should have demanded some concessions because now they just look like fools and they've been played by their mama bear. And there's really no other way to put it. It's going to be even harder now for those progressive priorities and goals to get through the House under the leadership of Hakeem Jeffries. So I just think it's pretty pathetic overall. And it's a really good conversation between Brian Grimm and Briahna Joy Gray. I do urge you guys to check out the entirety of it. We just reacted to a couple minutes there. I'm getting a little bit tired, need to eat something, so we're probably going to get out of here. But we had a great stream today, over 2 hours long. Love the conversation with the Red Berets. Hope you guys found that useful or inspiring. Hopefully you guys can support them if you're able to. And thank you all so much for tuning into the show. Did you have anything else you want to chat about or some closing words, Zach?
Yeah, just two quick things that I wanted to shout out. One, we talked a lot about the trans homies and how they're getting treated real rough on this stream, obviously, right, to put it mildly. Wanted to shout out Motorcycle Club in Kansas City that's based as hell. Original Gents MC Vice actually just wrote an article about it. I'll throw it up on the screen real quickly. We won't have time to read it, but I want everybody to see it, know about it. It was tight. So a bunch of trans dudes in Kansas City, doing a like a trans Day of Remembrance ride, and also just regular meetups. They've were founded about a year or 2 years ago now in November. So now is November, so about 2 years old. Anyway, shout out to these dudes out here. Kansas City's got a lot of good motorcycle culture. I'm actually not going to be shocked if this photo was taken in the West Bottoms, where Gavin and I live, because there's a big bridge, and I'm pretty sure that's where this is. But anyway, so shout out to those dudes. Last thing I wanted to shout out the World Cup. If you guys haven't been paying attention, the United States played so fucking good for the first half yesterday, and then shat the bed miserably in the second half. Can you imagine? We didn't even beat Wales. Wales hasn't been to the World Cup since the 1950s, and yet we're winning the whole fucking game until a buzzer fucking last minute they fucking tied it up, and so 1-1 going into the next one. But Friday, 1 o'clock, we get to stomp the English. I'm gonna get to do a lot of voices like this when I'm watching the goddamn game, I think, in it. But anyway, yeah, so watching that, really enjoying it. And that's all I have to say about that. That was so sad. It was a sad British impression. I'm going to work on it. Don't worry. I've got till Friday to polish it up.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation with our friends of the show from over at the Red Berets. Huge shout out to all the great work that they're doing. And stay tuned, because I'm going to post a clip of that discussion here in a bit, so you guys can share that around if you so desire. And we always do like to start and end the show with a big old shout out to the patron community. If you guys are if you guys enjoy the work we do and the content we create, please do consider hitting up the link in the description, patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. As I was saying, it is tough out here for an independent left-wing show, and we really, really do appreciate and need the support from you guys. So thank you so much for all of the support from our patron community. It really, really helps support the show. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. So again, huge shout out to the patrons. The link's going to be found in the description as always. Even just a couple bucks, $5 a month goes a long way. So if you enjoy our content and have the means to, please do consider supporting us on Patreon. It really, really helps. And if you don't have the means to, we of course 100% understand. All that we ask is that you hit that like button. It's another great way to support the show for free. So if everyone could hit that like button on their way out, that would also be awesome. But thank you guys so much for the support. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Really genuinely value all of you guys as members of our community. Really love hearing your perspective in chat as always. And again, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like Gavin said, they made that whole movie Hustle and Flow. You know, it's hard out here for a leftist internet blog. Anyway, peace out, everybody.
Yeah, peace out, everyone. Thanks, Laura. We appreciated talking to you today. As always, you're welcome on the Vanguard. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, participating in the discussion. We appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, peace out.